The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian, its walls lined with the flags of 1,000 conquered worlds. Ambassador Zextai of the Hegemony stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing dramatically as holographic. Displays showed the systematic destruction of yet another primitive civilization. The mammals of Kepler 442b have been neutralized, he announced to the assembled delegates. Their resistance lasted exactly 47 standard hours. As expected. A ripple of satisfaction passed through the chamber. The insectoid hive queen Ysila clicked her mandibles approvingly. Another successful cleansing operation. The galaxy grows more orderly with each conquered system. For 12,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained perfect order through absolute ruthlessness. When a species showed signs of technological advancement, they were given a simple choice: submit completely or face total annihilation. No exceptions had ever been made. No mercy had ever been shown. The philosophy was elegant in its simplicity. Compassion was weakness. Emotion led to chaos. Only through cold, calculated dominance could true peace be achieved across the stars. There is one remaining matter, Zextai continued, his reptilian features emotionless. Long-range scouts have detected another developing species in the Sol system. Third planet from their star. They call themselves humans. The mention of humans drew little interest. Admiral Korthax of the destroyer fleet barely looked up from his tactical displays. Current technological level? Primitive nuclear capability. Basic spaceflight. They have managed to place simple satellites around their world and send crewed vessels to their moon. Zextai manipulated the hologram to show Earth spinning slowly in the chamber's center. Standard procedure indicates we should dispatch a subjugation fleet within the next 50 standard years. Sooner, growled General Vexmore of the Warcast. Their progression rate appears accelerated. Better to crush them before they develop anything troublesome. The assembled delegates nodded in agreement. It was always the same pattern. Young species that showed rapid technological growth were the most dangerous if left unchecked. The humans would be no different from the countless others who had been reduced to ash and memory. High Arbiter Nelthara, ancient even by Galactic Council standards, raised a crystalline hand. Her species had been among the first to embrace the Council's methods, and her voice carried ultimate authority. Very well. Prepare the standard ultimatum. Give them the choice. But as the Council members began to disperse, discussing deployment schedules and fleet compositions, none of them noticed the subtle anomaly in their intelligence reports. The human signals they had intercepted weren't just technological communications. Mixed in with their scientific data and military, transmissions were something the Council's analysts had categorized as irrelevant cultural noise, music, stories, messages of love sent across vast distances. Transmissions from something humans called humanitarian aid organizations. The Council's computers had automatically filtered out these signals as waste data, unable to comprehend their significance. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the control room of the Arecibo replacement facility, watching the massive dish track across the night sky. The international team of scientists had been detecting unusual patterns in deep space for months now. Something was out there, something intelligent, and it was getting closer. The signal strength is increasing, reported her colleague, Dr. James Okafor. Whatever it is, it's definitely artificial and definitely headed our way. Sarah nodded, her mind racing through possibilities. First contact protocols had been theoretical for so long. Now they might actually need them. How long before we can establish two-way communication? Hard to say. The signals are incredibly complex. It's like they're using mathematics we haven't discovered yet. Across the globe, similar facilities were picking up the same transmissions. In Beijing, Moscow, and Cape Town, teams of scientists worked around the clock to decode what could be humanity's first message from the stars. The excitement was infectious. After decades of searching, they were no longer alone. None of them realized they were listening to the deployment orders for their own destruction. The Hegemony battlecruiser Inevitable Dominion slipped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, its massive hull bristling with weapons capable of cracking planets. Captain Threxon reviewed the mission parameters one final time. Standard subjugation protocol. Deliver the ultimatum. Wait for the inevitable rejection. Begin systematic bombardment of population centers until surrender was achieved. His crew was among the most experienced in the fleet. They had overseen the conquest of 47 worlds. The process had become routine, almost boring in its predictability. Young species always reacted the same way when faced with overwhelming force. First came denial, then anger, then desperate attempts at negotiation, and finally collapse into submission or extinction. "Sir," reported his sensor officer, "we're receiving multiple transmissions from the third planet. They appear to be attempting communication." Threxon's lipless mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "Already? They haven't even received our ultimatum yet. How refreshingly eager they are to surrender." The communications officer worked at his station, running the alien signals through the universal translator matrix. After a few moments, his confusion was evident. "Sir, I'm not certain these are surrender communications. They appear to be welcoming us." "Welcoming?" Threxon leaned forward in his command chair. "Clarify. The transmissions are coming from multiple points across their planet. They're expressing excitement about first contact and offering to share information about their culture, their art, their science. They're inviting us to visit their world as guests." A stunned silence fell across the bridge. In 12,000 years of conquest, no species had ever welcomed the arrival of a council fleet. Fear, yes. Anger, certainly. Desperate attempts at negotiation, always. But never welcome. Threxon stood slowly, his tactical mind struggling to process this unprecedented development. "Are they mocking us? Is this some form of psychological warfare?" "Unknown, sir." The emotional resonance indicators suggest genuine enthusiasm and curiosity. No signs of deception or fear. The captain moved to the main view screen, staring at the blue-white marble that hung in the darkness ahead. Something was different about these humans, something his training had never prepared him for. "Sir," the communications officer continued, "they're also transmitting what they call gifts of friendship. Mathematical constants, star maps, examples of their music and literature. They want us to understand who they are." Threxon had conquered dozens of worlds. He knew the pattern of submission and resistance as well as he knew his own heartbeat. But this was completely outside his experience. For the first time in his military career, Captain Threxon felt uncertain. Captain Threxon paced the bridge of the inevitable Dominion, his clawed feet clicking against the metal deck plating. 3 days had passed since entering the Sol system, and the human transmissions continued to flood their communications array. Each message was more bewildering than the last. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "we've received another batch of transmissions. This one includes detailed schematics of their medical facilities, agricultural techniques, and something they call disaster relief protocols." Medical facilities. Threxon stopped pacing. Are they requesting aid? Do they have some plague we should be aware of? The communications officer's scaled brow furrowed as he studied the data. "No, sir. They appear to be offering to share their medical knowledge with us. They're describing techniques for treating injuries and diseases across different biological systems. They seem to believe we might find it useful." Threxon's second-in-command, Commander Velthorn, approached with obvious confusion. "Captain, I've been reviewing the cultural transmissions. These humans seem to have something called humanitarian organizations that exist solely to help other humans, even those from different tribal groups. They receive no territorial gain or resources in return." "That makes no sense," Threxon replied flatly.
"Why would they expend resources on beings that provide no strategic value?"
"I cannot comprehend it either, sir. But the evidence is overwhelming. They have entire global networks dedicated to feeding the hungry, treating the sick, and rescuing those affected by natural disasters. They do this even for humans they have never met and will never see again." Threxon stared at the tactical display showing Earth's blue surface. In his 40 years of military service, he had studied the behavior patterns of hundreds of species. Competition, aggression, territorial expansion, resource acquisition, these were the universal constants that drove all intelligent life. What these humans were describing defied everything he understood about evolutionary biology. "Perhaps it's a deception," he mused aloud. "A sophisticated ruse to make us lower our guard." "Sir," the sensor officer interrupted, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. Multiple fusion reactors are coming online simultaneously." Threxon spun toward the tactical station. "Weapon systems?" "Negative, sir. The energy is being directed toward their communication arrays. They're boosting transmission power across their entire planet. It appears they want to ensure we receive their messages clearly. This was becoming more bizarre by the hour. Species facing imminent conquest typically went dark, hiding their communications to prevent intelligence gathering. These humans were doing the exact opposite. "Sir," the communications officer said hesitantly, "there's something else. We've been monitoring their internal communications, and they appear to be having what they call debates about how to welcome us properly. Some groups are arguing about which of their cultural treasures would be most appropriate to share first." Commander Velthorn examined his own tactical readouts. "Captain, long-range sensors show no military buildup, no orbital defense platforms under construction, no evacuation of population centers. Either they're the most confident species we've ever encountered or what, Commander? Or they genuinely don't perceive us as a threat." Threxon felt a cold sensation in his stomach that had nothing to do with the ship's life support systems. "Transmit the standard ultimatum. Follow protocol exactly." The communications officer activated the ship's primary transmitter. The message that had been delivered to countless worlds began broadcasting toward Earth. "Primitive species of the Sol system, you have attracted the attention of the Galactic Council. Submit to our authority immediately or face total annihilation. You have 72 standard hours to respond with unconditional surrender." The bridge crew waited in tense silence. This was the moment when species showed their true nature. Fear would grip their population centers. Military forces would mobilize. Desperate attempts at negotiation would begin. Instead, the response came within minutes, transmitted from dozens of locations across the planet simultaneously. "Greetings, representatives of the Galactic Council. We are honored by your contact and excited to learn about your civilization. We understand you may view us as primitive, and we have much to learn from you. However, we cannot surrender our autonomy, as it would prevent us from helping others who depend on us. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting to discuss how our species might coexist peacefully." Threxon read the message 3 times before the words sank in. They acknowledged our technological superiority and then refused surrender anyway? "Sir," the communications officer continued, "they're also asking if our crew requires any medical assistance or supplies. They're concerned about the effects of long-duration space travel on our health." The captain slumped into his command chair. Every protocol in the Galactic Council military handbook was useless in this situation. The humans weren't behaving like any species in recorded history. "They're worried about our health," Commander Velthorn repeated slowly. "We threaten them with extinction, and they offer medical aid." A new transmission arrived from Earth. This one included detailed information about human psychology and sociology, along with examples of their art, music, and literature. But it was the accompanying message that made Threxon's blood run cold. "We understand that your civilization has achieved great things through strength and conquest. Our species has chosen a different path, but we respect your right to live as you see fit. We hope that by sharing our perspective we might find common ground. We believe that all intelligent life has inherent value, and we would be honored to learn from your experiences while sharing our own. Perhaps together we can find solutions to challenges that neither of our species could solve alone." "Sir," the sensor officer reported, "we're detecting launch signatures from the planet's surface. Multiple vessels are heading toward our position." "Battle formations," Threxon commanded, finally returning to familiar territory. "Prepare defensive systems." "Wait, sir," the sensor officer said, studying his displays more carefully. "These aren't military vessels. They appear to be cargo ships? They're transmitting identification codes and requesting permission to dock." "Cargo ships?" Velthorn examined the tactical readout. "What could they possibly be bringing us?" The answer came moments later in another transmission from Earth. "We hope you will accept these gifts as tokens of friendship. Our cargo vessels contain examples of our art, music, literature, and cuisine. We've also included medical supplies that might be useful for different biological systems, as well as detailed information about our culture and history. We understand that trust must be earned, and we hope this gesture demonstrates our peaceful intentions." Captain Threxon stared at the approaching vessels in complete bewilderment. In his entire military career spanning dozens of conquered worlds, he had never encountered anything like this. The humans were offering gifts to the very beings who had threatened to destroy them. For the first time since entering the Sol system, Threxon began to wonder if the Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake. The human cargo vessels docked with the inevitable Dominion, despite every protocol screaming that this was impossible. No species had ever willingly boarded a Council warship during active conquest proceedings. Yet here they were, 3 small craft containing what the humans called diplomatic gifts. Captain Threxon stood in the main cargo bay, surrounded by his security detail, watching as the human containers were opened under strict quarantine protocols. His chief science officer, Dr. Nexris, ran continuous scans for biological weapons, explosives, or any other conceivable threat. All containers show negative for dangerous materials, Nexris reported. Contents appear to be exactly what they claimed. The first container held what humans called music. Thousands of recordings spanning their entire cultural history, from primitive drums to complex symphonies. The second contained examples of their visual art, literature, and historical documents. The third made Threxon's mind reel. Medical supplies specifically adapted for non-human biology, based on their analysis of the Council's transmitted genetic markers. They reverse-engineered our biological data from communication signals. Commander Velthorn examined a medical device designed for hegemony physiology. And then created aid supplies for us? Dr. Nexris was studying the medical equipment with growing amazement. Captain, these devices are crude by our standards, but the principles are sound. They've identified potential allergic reactions between our species' biologies and created buffer solutions to prevent them. They're actually trying to ensure we don't get sick from contact with them. Threxon picked up one of their books, its pages filled with symbols he couldn't read but somehow found aesthetically pleasing. What kind of species prepares medical aid for their conquerors? The question hung in the air unanswered as his communication officer's voice crackled through the intercom. Captain, to the bridge immediately. We're receiving a priority transmission from the Council. Back on the bridge, High Arbiter Nelthara's crystalline form filled the main screen, her ancient features sharp with disapproval. Captain Threxon, explain why the human ultimatum deadline has passed without either surrender or the commencement of bombardment. Threxon straightened to attention. High Arbiter, the situation is uncomplex. The humans have responded in ways that fall outside standard protocols. There are no situations that fall outside standard protocols. Nelthara's voice carried the chill of absolute authority. Either they have surrendered or they have refused. If they have refused, you will begin bombardment immediately. They have refused surrender, but Threxon struggled to find words that would convey the unprecedented nature of the situation. High Arbiter, they have offered us gifts. They have provided medical aid. They speak of friendship and cooperation. The silence that followed was longer than the space between stars. When Nelthara finally spoke, her voice was deadly quiet. Captain, are you suffering from some form of mental breakdown? Perhaps exposure to alien pathogens has affected your judgment? No, High Arbiter. I am perfectly lucid. The humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They appear to genuinely wish us no harm. Impossible. All species are driven by competition and self-preservation. This is fundamental biology. Threxon glanced at Commander Velthorn, who nodded encouragingly. High Arbiter, I request permission to transmit our complete intelligence files on human behavior. The evidence speaks for itself. 20 minutes later, Nelthara's expression had shifted from anger to confusion, to something approaching disbelief. The bridge crew of the inevitable Dominion waited in tense silence as the High Arbiter reviewed footage of human rescue operations, medical missions to hostile regions, and scientific expeditions dedicated solely to expanding knowledge for the benefit of all. These images cannot be authentic. Nelthara finally said, You're showing me humans who risk their lives to save members of other human tribal groups, with no expectation of reward. Humans who travel to dangerous regions solely to provide medical care to strangers. This defies evolutionary logic. The evidence has been verified through multiple independent sources, Dr. Nexris reported. I have analyzed their biological markers, psychological profiles, and cultural patterns. Everything indicates this behavior is genuine. Nelthara was quiet for a long moment. Captain, I am dispatching additional ships to your location. The Council must examine this anomaly personally. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge crew in stunned silence. In 12,000 years of Galactic Council history, the High Arbiter had never personally investigated a conquest target. 3 days later, the space around Earth filled with ships. Not just the standard subjugation fleet, but science vessels, diplomatic craft, and observation platforms. Representatives from every major council species had come to witness the impossible, a species that seemed to genuinely care about the welfare of others. Dr. Yathara, the council's leading xenobiologist, materialized on the bridge of the inevitable dominion via quantum transport. Her ethereal form pulsed with confused energy patterns. "Captain, I need to examine these humans directly. Their behavior patterns are theoretically impossible." "They've already invited us to visit their planet," Threxon replied. "Multiple times. And you haven't gone because everything in our training says it's a trap. But nothing in their behavior suggests deception." Dr. Yathara's form flickered with what might have been excitement. "Captain, I'm reading the human transmissions now. They're asking if we need assistance with our life support systems. They're concerned that our ships might not be designed for extended operations in their solar system." Commander Velthorn shook his head in amazement. "They're worried about us running out of supplies while we decide whether to destroy them." "There's more," Dr. Yathara continued. "They've apparently been monitoring our communications protocols and have developed translation software to improve understanding between our species. They're offering to share it freely." Captain Threxon felt the last of his certainty crumble away. "They're helping us communicate more effectively so we can coordinate our own invasion of their world." Dr. Yathara's energy patterns shifted to deep confusion. "I must study them directly. Will you arrange a meeting?" Within hours, the humans had responded with enthusiasm to the request for direct contact. They offered to meet anywhere that would be comfortable for the council representatives, in space, on their moon, or on specially prepared areas of their planet, designed to accommodate different biological needs. As Captain Threxon prepared for humanity's first face-to-face contact with the Galactic Council, he realized that everything he thought he knew about intelligent life was about to change forever. These humans were going to teach the galaxy something that 12,000 years of conquest had never revealed: the power of compassion, and somehow that terrified him more than any weapon ever could. The meeting took place aboard the human space station they called Unity 1, hastily constructed in Earth's orbit, specifically to accommodate the various biological needs of the council delegation. Captain Threxon marveled at the engineering as his shuttle approached. The humans had somehow created separate atmospheric sections for different species they had never met, based solely on the biological data transmitted in council communications. "Sir," his pilot reported, "the humans are guiding us to a docking bay, specifically designed for our shuttle configuration. The atmospheric composition matches our ship exactly." Threxon studied the station through the viewport. It was clearly new construction, built with remarkable speed and precision. "They built this entire facility just for us?" "Apparently, sir. They're calling it a friendship station, and say it will remain in orbit permanently as a meeting place between our species." As they docked, Threxon was met by Dr. Sarah Chen, the human who had first detected their approach. She wore what appeared to be a protective suit designed to prevent any biological contamination between species. Her smile was visible through the transparent helmet, and despite everything Threxon knew about first contact psychology, it appeared genuine. "Captain Threxon," she said, her words translated through the communication device the humans had developed. "Welcome to Unity 1, we're honored by your visit." Threxon studied her carefully. After 40 years of military service, he prided himself on reading the subtle signs of deception, fear, or hidden aggression. He found none. "Dr. Chen, are you not concerned that we might be here to study your defenses?" Her laugh was musical and completely without guile. "Captain, you've already demonstrated that your technology is far superior to ours. If you intended to harm us, you wouldn't need to study anything. We're hoping you're here because you're curious about us as we are about you." As they moved through the station's corridors, Threxon noted the artwork on the walls, not just human creations, but attempts to imagine what alien art might look like. The humans had created sculptures and paintings inspired by the brief glimpses of council ships they had observed. "We wanted you to feel welcome," Dr. Chen explained, noticing his attention. "We know we probably got everything wrong, but we tried to imagine what might be beautiful to minds very different from our own." They entered a large chamber where other council representatives waited. Dr. Yathara's energy form pulsed with fascination as she studied the humans present. General Vexmore stood rigid with suspicion, while High Arbiter Nelthara observed everything with the calculating gaze of someone trying to solve an impossible puzzle. "Honored representatives," Dr. Chen addressed the group, We've prepared presentations about our species, our culture, and our hopes for peaceful contact. But first we want to ask, how can we make you more comfortable? Do you need anything? Are there ways we can improve this facility for future meetings? General Vexmore's weapons remained holstered, but his hand never moved far from them. You realize we could destroy your entire civilization without effort? Yes, replied another human, Dr. James Okafor. We understand that completely. Your technology is incredibly advanced. That's actually one of the things we find most exciting about meeting you. Exciting? General Vexmore's scarred features twisted with confusion. We threaten your existence and you find it exciting? Dr. Chen stepped forward. General, imagine if you met beings who had mastered technologies you could barely dream of. Imagine the scientific knowledge they could share, the problems they might help solve, the perspectives they could offer. Yes, you could destroy us, but you could also teach us things that might benefit both our species. Dr. Yathara's energy patterns flared with interest. Dr. Chen, your species' behavior contradicts fundamental principles of evolutionary biology. Competition for resources drives all life. How do you explain your willingness to help beings who provide no survival advantage? Maybe our definition of survival is different, Dr. Chen replied thoughtfully. We've learned that our species thrives when we work together, when we help each other. We believe that principle might extend beyond our own species. High Arbiter Nelthara finally spoke, her crystalline voice carrying absolute authority. Explain your humanitarian organizations. Our intelligence indicates you expend enormous resources helping other humans with no expectation of return. Dr. Okafor activated a holographic display showing global aid operations. When natural disasters strike, when diseases spread, when people suffer, we respond because we can. Because suffering is suffering, regardless of tribal boundaries or national borders. We've found that a world where everyone has enough is better for everyone, including us. But the resources, Nelthara pressed. The time, the energy, the materials you could use for your own advancement. We are advancing, Dr. Chen replied. Every person we educate might discover something amazing. Every life we save might contribute something valuable to our species. Every problem we solve together makes us stronger as a whole. General Vexmore paced around the chamber like a caged predator. You're describing weakness, sentiment that will make you vulnerable to stronger species. Dr. Chen considered this carefully. General, what if I told you that our greatest technological advances came from international cooperation? Our space program, our medical breakthroughs, our understanding of the universe, they all happened because we learned to work together instead of fighting each other. Dr. Yathara's form brightened considerably. Fascinating. Your species discovered that cooperation yields better results than competition? Not always, Dr. Okafor admitted. We still compete in many ways, but we learned that some challenges are too big for any group to solve alone. Climate change, disease, poverty, the exploration of space. These require all of us working together. Threxen found himself leaning forward, genuinely curious. What about species that refuse cooperation? That remain hostile? We keep trying, Dr. Chen said simply. Sometimes it takes generations. Sometimes it never works. But we've found that most conflicts come from fear, misunderstanding, or scarcity. Address those root causes and cooperation often becomes possible. High Arbiter Nelthara was silent for a long moment. Dr. Chen, your species faces a choice. Submit to council authority and live as subjects or face destruction. You understand these are your only options? We understand that's how you've operated in the past, Dr. Chen replied gently. But we wonder if there might be a third option that benefits everyone. Impossible, General Vexmore growled. Order requires hierarchy. Hierarchy requires submission. Dr. Okafor activated another display. General, what if hierarchy could be based on expertise rather than force? What if different species led in areas where they excelled? Your species might lead in military science while we contribute medical knowledge and others offer different specialties. Dr. Yathara's energy patterns became almost explosive with excitement. A cooperative hierarchy based on mutual benefit rather than conquest? It might work, Dr. Chen said, but it would require all parties to trust that cooperation serves everyone better than domination. The chamber fell silent as the council representatives contemplated this unprecedented concept. For 12,000 years, they had maintained order through fear and force. These humans were suggesting something that had never been tried in galactic history: true partnership between species. Captain Threxen realized that regardless of what happened next, The galaxy would never be the same. The humans had introduced an idea that would either revolutionize interstellar civilization or destroy everything the Council had built. And despite his training, despite his experience, despite everything he thought he knew about the universe, Threxon found himself hoping these impossible humans might actually be right. The emergency session of the full Galactic Council convened in the Great Chamber, but the atmosphere was unlike anything in 12 millennia of recorded history. Instead of the usual cold efficiency, confusion and heated debate filled the air. Representatives from 1,000 worlds argued in dozens of languages while holographic displays showed footage from the human first contact. High Arbiter Nelthara called for order, but her usual authority seemed diminished. The human question requires immediate resolution. Their behavior threatens the fundamental principles upon which our civilization is built. Ambassador Zextai of the hegemony rose from his position. The solution is obvious. Destroy them before their dangerous ideas spread to other worlds. Compassion is a virus that could destroy everything we've achieved. But for the first time in Council history, the chamber erupted in disagreement. Admiral Korthak slammed his massive fist on his command console. Wait, I've been reviewing their technical specifications. These humans built that meeting station in 72 hours. 72 hours. Our engineering corps would need months for similar construction. Dr. Yathara's energy form pulsed urgently. The medical advances they've shared are remarkable. Their approach to biological compatibility could revolutionize healthcare across dozens of species. We would be destroying potentially invaluable knowledge. Knowledge built on weakness. General Vexmore growled, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. Their cooperation makes them soft, does it? Captain Threxon stood, knowing he was about to end his career but unable to remain silent. Council members, I've spent 3 weeks observing these humans. They're not weak. They're terrifyingly strong in ways we never considered. The chamber fell silent. A ship captain openly contradicting Council doctrine was unprecedented. Explain yourself, Nelthara commanded. Threxon activated his personal display, showing footage from human history. Look at their response to global catastrophes. When disease threatened their species, they didn't protect only their own tribes. They mobilized globally, sharing resources and knowledge until the threat was eliminated. When natural disasters struck, they sent aid regardless of political boundaries. Wasteful sentiment, Zextai interrupted. Is it? Threxon continued. Their species went from primitive agriculture to spaceflight in less than 10,000 years. Our average conquest target requires 50,000 years for similar advancement. They achieved this rapid development specifically because they learned to cooperate instead of constantly fighting each other. Hive Queen Isila's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Captain, are you suggesting their cooperation is actually an evolutionary advantage? I'm suggesting their compassion makes them incredibly efficient, Threxon replied. They don't waste resources on internal conflicts. They don't duplicate research across competing factions. When they encounter a problem, their entire species works together to solve it. Dr. Yathara's form flared with excitement. Captain Threxon is correct. I've analyzed their technological progression. Their advancement rate accelerated dramatically when they established what they call international cooperation protocols. The correlation is undeniable. Nelthara leaned forward, her crystalline features reflecting the chamber's lights. Dr. Yathara, what are you saying? I'm saying these humans might represent the next stage of intelligent evolution, a species that has transcended tribalism not through conquest, but through genuine cooperation. The chamber erupted in chaos. Voices rose in a dozen languages as the implications sank in. If the humans were right, if cooperation truly was more efficient than conquest, then everything the Council had built was not just wrong, it was obsolete. Ambassador Krelnoth of the Synthetic Collective stood slowly. Council members, I have reviewed the humans' technological gifts. Their artificial intelligence principles are based on serving the welfare of all humans, not just their creators. This is unheard of, impossible, Zextai hissed. Artificial intelligence serves its creators or it serves no one. Yet their AI systems work, Krelnoth continued. More than work, they thrive. Because they were designed with built-in safeguards ensuring they consider the welfare of all sentient beings. General Vexmore's scarred features twisted with frustration. You're all missing the point. Even if their methods work for them, they threaten our system. If other species learn that cooperation is possible, they might rebel against council authority. Let them, said a voice from the back of the chamber. Every head turned toward Sub-Admiral Kixnall of the Border Worlds, a region known for its fierce independence. She rarely spoke in council sessions, but her words carried weight. Sub-Admiral? Nelthara's voice was dangerously quiet. Kixnall stood slowly, her multiple arms spreading in a gesture of openness. High Arbiter, my people have served the Council for 8,000 years. We've enforced your conquests, maintained your order, died for your vision of galactic peace. But I've watched the human recordings and I have to ask, what if we've been wrong? The chamber was dead silent now. What if there's a better way? Kixnall continued. The humans achieved in 10,000 years what took us 50,000. They did it without conquering anyone, without destroying entire civilizations, without forcing billions to live in fear. Nelthara's voice could have frozen stars. Sub-Admiral, you are dangerously close to sedition. Am I? Or am I asking questions we should have asked long ago? Kixnall gestured toward the displays showing human achievements. Look at what they've accomplished. Look at how they treat each other. Look at how they treated us. Beings who came to destroy them with kindness and respect. Captain Threxen felt a surge of unexpected courage. High Arbiter, the humans have requested a formal audience with the full council. They want to present what they call a proposal for galactic cooperation. Absolutely not, Zextai snarled. We do not negotiate with conquest targets. But Dr. Yathara's energy patterns were dancing with anticipation. High Arbiter, from a scientific perspective, we must hear their proposal. We are witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. To ignore it would be unscientific. Admiral Korthax nodded slowly. Their engineering capabilities alone warrant investigation. If their methods can improve our technology, Hive Queen Ysila clicked her agreement. The potential benefits of understanding their cooperation protocols could be significant. Nelthara looked around the chamber, seeing doubt in faces that had never questioned council doctrine before. For 12,000 years she had maintained absolute order through absolute certainty. Now for the first time that certainty was cracking. Very well, she said finally. We will hear their proposal. But make no mistake, if their ideas threaten galactic stability, they will be eliminated. As the council session ended and representatives dispersed to prepare for the unprecedented hearing, Captain Threxen realized that the humans had already achieved something impossible. Without firing a single shot, without threatening anyone, without even raising their voices, they had forced the most powerful civilization in the galaxy to question its fundamental beliefs. Whether they survived the next few days would determine not just humanity's fate, but the future of every intelligent species in the galaxy. And despite his fear, despite his training, despite everything he had believed about the nature of power and civilization, Threxen found himself hoping these remarkable humans would somehow find a way to change everything. The Galactic Council chamber had been reconfigured for the most unusual session in its 12,000-year history. Instead of the traditional hierarchical seating arrangement designed to emphasize council supremacy, the humans had requested a circular configuration where all participants could face each other as equals. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the center of the circle, surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Her presentation materials floated in holographic displays around the chamber, showing human achievements, scientific discoveries, and cultural developments. But it was her opening words that sent shockwaves through the assembled delegates. Honored council members, we come before you not as subjects seeking mercy, but as partners offering opportunity. General Vexmore's growl echoed through the chamber. Partnership? You are primitives facing extinction. You have nothing to offer. Dr. Chen smiled, and her next display showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. General, what if I told you that we might have solutions to problems you didn't even know existed? The map zoomed in on various sectors, highlighting areas marked in red. Dr. James Okafor stepped forward to explain. These are regions where council enforcement has failed repeatedly. Rebellious worlds, unstable sectors, areas where your rule exists only through constant military pressure. High Arbiter Nelthara leaned forward. How do you know about classified military intelligence? We don't, Dr. Chen replied. We observed patterns in your public communications and extrapolated. It's the same analytical approach we use to understand social dynamics on our own world. She activated another display, showing detailed psychological profiles. What we found suggests that many of these problematic regions share common characteristics. Species forced into submission who never truly accepted council authority. They comply through fear, not loyalty. Ambassador HFY hissed with displeasure. Fear maintains order. Loyalty is irrelevant, is it? Dr. Okafor challenged. On our world, we've learned that sustainable governance requires genuine consent. People who believe in a system work to strengthen it. People who fear it work to overthrow it. Captain Threxon found himself nodding despite his training. He had seen the pattern countless times. Conquered worlds that required constant monitoring. Populations that simmered with resentment. Resources wasted on endless enforcement operations. Dr. Chen continued her presentation. We propose an alternative model. Instead of ruling through conquest, what if the council led through cooperation? Instead of forcing submission, what if you earned loyalty by genuinely serving the welfare of all member species? The chamber erupted. Voices rose in a dozen languages. As council members debated the radical concept, Dr. Yathara's energy form pulsed with fascination while Admiral Korthax studied the human's data with grudging interest. Impossible, General Vexmore declared. Beings require strong leadership. Without clear hierarchy, chaos follows. Dr. Chen nodded respectfully. General, you're absolutely right that beings need leadership. But what if that leadership was based on competence and service rather than force? What if council positions were earned through demonstrated ability to solve problems and improve lives? She activated a new display showing human governmental structures. On our world, leaders who fail to serve their people lose their positions. This creates incentive for effective governance rather than mere power accumulation. Sub-Admiral Kixnell spoke from her position in the circle. Dr. Chen, how would such a system handle species that refuse cooperation? The same way we handle individuals who break laws, Dr. Okafor replied. Consequences exist, but they're proportional and focused on protecting others rather than maintaining dominance. Rehabilitation rather than punishment when possible. Hive Queen Ysila clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. You speak of changing fundamental power structures that have existed for millennia. The transition would be chaotic. Not necessarily, Dr. Chen said, activating her most ambitious display yet. We propose a gradual transformation. Start with voluntary participation. Offer species the choice between traditional council authority and membership in what we might call the galactic cooperative. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Demonstrate that cooperation works better than conquest, she continued. Let species choose for themselves which system serves them better. If we're wrong, the traditional approach will prove superior and species will choose submission. If we're right, cooperation will demonstrate better results and more species will choose partnership. Nelthara's crystalline voice cut through the silence. And if the cooperative system fails? If chaos results? Then you terminate the experiment and return to current methods, Dr. Chen replied simply. But if it succeeds, you gain something unprecedented. A galaxy where beings work together willingly because they believe in shared goals rather than submit reluctantly because they fear destruction. Dr. Yathara's energy patterns danced with excitement. Dr. Chen, your proposal suggests fascinating possibilities. Imagine the scientific advances possible when every species contributes their unique perspectives freely, rather than under compulsion. Admiral Korthax examined the economic projections in the human data. The efficiency gains could be substantial. Resources currently spent on enforcement could be redirected toward development and exploration. But General Vexmore remained skeptical. You assume all species are capable of cooperation. What about naturally aggressive species? Territorial species? Species whose biology drives them toward conquest? Dr. Okafor stepped forward. General, humans have those same drives. We evolved from territorial aggressive ancestors, but we learned that channeling those drives toward common goals serves us better than eternal conflict. Competition still exists in our system, Dr. Chen added, but it's competition to contribute, to solve problems, to achieve great things. Instead of fighting over limited resources, we work together to expand what's available to everyone. Captain Threxon found himself speaking without conscious decision. High Arbiter, the humans have demonstrated remarkable achievements through their cooperative methods. Perhaps a limited trial, Captain. General Vexmore's voice was sharp with warning. You forget yourself. But Nelthara raised a crystalline hand for silence. Captain Threxon has observed these humans more closely than anyone. His perspective is valuable. Threxon took a deep breath. High Arbiter, in 40 years of military service, I have overseen the conquest of 47 worlds. Each required constant enforcement. Each drained resources. Each generated resentment that persisted for generations. He paused, looking around the chamber at beings who had known only one way of maintaining order for 12,000 years. But these humans, they built an entire space station in 3 days just to make us comfortable. They offered medical aid to beings threatening their destruction. They shared their most advanced knowledge freely, asking nothing in return. I have never seen loyalty and dedication like what they show each other. The chamber was absolutely quiet now. High Arbiter, Threxon continued, if there is even a small possibility that their methods could work on a galactic scale, don't we owe it to ourselves and to every species in the galaxy to find out? Nelthara was silent for a long moment, her ancient mind processing concepts that challenged every assumption about power, order, and civilization. Finally, she spoke. Dr. Chen, if the Council were to authorize this experiment, how would you propose we begin? 5 years had passed since the Galactic Cooperative began as an experimental alternative to traditional Council rule. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, the massive diplomatic hub that had grown from their small Unity-1 prototype into the beating heart of interstellar cooperation. Below her, ships from 47 different species docked and departed in carefully choreographed patterns, not the rigid military formations of Council fleets, but the organic flow of beings choosing to work together toward common goals. The quarterly reports are in, Dr. James Okafor said, joining her at the viewing port. The results still seem too good to be true. Sarah smiled, watching a hegemony science vessel dock alongside a human medical ship and a Hive Queen agricultural transport. Show me. The holographic displays that materialized around them told a story that would have been impossible to imagine just 5 years earlier. Economic productivity in cooperative sectors had increased by 300%. Scientific advancement had accelerated exponentially as species shared knowledge freely. Most remarkably, military expenditures had dropped by 70% as conflicts became increasingly rare. The traditional Council sectors are taking notice, James continued. 3 more systems requested transfer to cooperative governance this month. Through the viewing port, Sarah could see the physical manifestation of this change. The space around Harmony Station bustled with activity as beings who had once been enemies worked side by side. Hegemony engineers collaborated with human doctors to develop universal medical treatments. Hive Queen agricultural specialists taught their techniques to species facing food shortages. Synthetic collective AI systems helped coordinate resource distribution across dozens of worlds. Sarah, James's voice carried a note of concern. The traditional Council isn't taking these defections well. Intelligence reports suggest hardline factions are organizing resistance. Sarah nodded. They had always known this transition wouldn't be smooth. Fear of change ran deep, especially among those who had benefited most from the old system. What's the latest from the Council chambers? Split almost evenly. Nelthara and the Progressives see the success of our model and want to expand it. Zextai and the Traditionalists view it as an existential threat to galactic order. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority transmission. Captain Threxon's image appeared in the display, but he wore new insignia. No longer a Council military officer, but coordinator of the Cooperative Defense Alliance. Sarah, James, he said, his reptilian features showing an expression that would have been impossible 5 years earlier. Genuine warmth. I have news that will interest you. Good news or challenging news? Sarah asked. Both. The Council has reached a decision about the cooperative experiment. High Arbiter Nelthara wants to address the full cooperative assembly tomorrow. Sarah and James exchanged glances. This was the moment they had all been waiting for and dreading. After 5 years of proving that cooperation could work, the traditional Council would finally decide whether to embrace the new model or attempt to destroy it. 24 hours later, the Great Assembly Hall of Harmony Station held representatives from over 200 worlds. Unlike the imposing hierarchy of the old Council chambers, the cooperative assembly was designed around the principle that every voice mattered. Beings sat in concentric circles, with translation and communication systems ensuring everyone could participate fully. High Arbiter Nelthara materialized at the center via quantum transport, her crystalline form reflecting the hopes and fears of everyone present. Around her stood the key figures who had shaped the last 5 years. Dr. Chen and Dr. Okafor representing humanity, Captain Threxen speaking for the military alliance, Dr. Yathara as chief scientific coordinator, and dozens of others who had chosen cooperation over conquest. 5 years ago, Nelthara began, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. This assembly did not exist. The Galactic Cooperative was an untested theory proposed by a species we came to conquer. Today, that theory has become a reality that challenges everything we thought we knew about civilization. She paused, her ancient gaze sweeping across the assembled representatives. The data is undeniable. Cooperative worlds show higher productivity, greater innovation, improved quality of life, and dramatically reduced conflict. Species that joined voluntarily demonstrate loyalty and dedication that surpasses anything achieved through conquest. Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber, but Nelthara raised a crystalline hand for silence. However, not all council members accept these results. Traditional factions argue that cooperation is unsustainable, that beings will eventually revert to competition and conflict without strong hierarchical control. Sarah felt her heart racing. Everything they had worked for, everything they had proved, hung on the next few words. Therefore, Nelthara continued, the Council has reached a decision. The Galactic Cooperative will be dissolved. Shocked silence filled the chamber. Sarah felt the bottom drop out of her stomach. After everything they had achieved, after all the lives improved and conflicts resolved, the old guard was reasserting control. But Nelthara wasn't finished. The Galactic Cooperative will be dissolved because it is no longer an experiment. As of today, cooperation becomes the standard model of galactic governance. The traditional conquest system is hereby retired. The chamber erupted in celebration. Beings from dozens of species cheered, embraced, and expressed joy in forms unique to their biology. Sarah found herself crying tears of relief and triumph as 5 years of uncertainty finally resolved into hope. Nelthara waited for the celebration to subside before continuing. This transformation will not be instantaneous. Species currently under traditional council rule will be given the choice to transition to cooperative membership or maintain their current status. No being will be forced to change, but none will be prevented from choosing cooperation if they desire it. Captain Threxen stepped forward. High Arbiter, what of species that refuse cooperation? What of those who prefer the old ways? They will be respected, Nelthara replied. One of the fundamental principles we have learned from the humans is that true cooperation cannot be forced. Those who choose traditional hierarchical government may maintain it, provided they do not interfere with the rights of others to choose differently. Dr. Chen approached the center of the chamber, her voice carrying clearly in the hushed space. High Arbiter, 5 years ago you asked how we would begin this experiment. Today I want to ask, how do we continue building a galaxy where every species can thrive? Nelthara's crystalline features reflected what might have been a smile. Dr. Chen, I believe that is a question for the Galactic Cooperative Assembly to answer. The Council's role in determining the future of galactic civilization ends today. That responsibility now belongs to all of us. As the formal session ended and beings began to mingle in the celebration that followed, Sarah found herself in conversation with representatives from species she had never imagined meeting. A crystalline entity from the Neutron Star Federation discussed poetry with a gaseous being from the Nebula Collective. Former enemies shared meals and planned joint scientific expeditions. Dr. Yathara approached, her energy form practically dancing with excitement. Sarah, the possibilities are endless now. Imagine what we can achieve when every species in the galaxy contributes their unique perspectives to common challenges. Sarah nodded. Watching a group of young beings from a dozen different worlds collaborate on a holographic art project. They had grown up during the cooperative experiment, never knowing the old system of conquest and submission. For them, cooperation across species was simply normal. Captain Threxen joined them, his expression thoughtful. Sarah, I need to ask you something. 5 years ago, when you first met our invasion fleet, were you afraid? Sarah considered the question carefully. Terrified, she admitted, but also hopeful. Hopeful. We threatened to destroy your entire species. Yes, but you were also proof that we weren't alone in the universe. And we believed that any species capable of building starships and organizing galactic civilization must also be capable of choosing compassion over conquest. Threxen was quiet for a moment. You had more faith in us than we had in ourselves. Maybe, Sarah replied, watching the celebration continue around them. Or maybe we just understood that the capacity for good exists in every intelligent species. It just needs the right conditions to flourish. As the day turned to night cycles across dozens of different worlds, the celebration continued. But it wasn't just a celebration of political change. It was a celebration of possibility, the recognition that intelligence, compassion, and cooperation could create something greater than any single species could achieve alone. The humans had come to the galaxy expecting to find wonders beyond their imagination. They had found something even better, the chance to help create those wonders together with friends they had never dreamed possible. And across the galaxy, on worlds where beings had lived in fear for 12,000 years, children looked up at the stars and saw not threats or conquerors, but neighbors and partners in building a future where everyone could thrive. The last thing they